and welcome to the Something Random podcast, where sometimes we talk about movies, sometimes we talk about television, but we always talk about something random. I am your host, Charles Joseph Kelly.
And I am Michael Macbeth. I'm here too.
And I'm your co-host, Scotty Schaefer.
It's Joel again. I'm still here, same as every week.
See, yeah, we got a new guy here. He's laughing at it as much as I am. It's so funny. It's like perfectly timed. Today we have a special, beautiful guest star, Nick Johnson. Welcome to the table. Nick,
Hey.
how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you guys doing?
We're a little goofy.
Yeah, I gotta say that as well as a guest on the show, I'm also a huge fan.
Oh,
Shucks.
Look at that.
See,
Yeah.
I
You
know,
don't
have
I
to say
know
that,
we
you know.
paid you a good amount of money to say that, but it
Yeah.
still feels good when you say those words coming out of your mouth.
Yeah, I mean the money feels good in my pocket, so
Yeah,
I understand.
yeah.
I understand.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
I'm Nick. I'm Nick.
Hi. Hi, Nick.
It's good to be here. I'm a stand-up comedian and actor in the area. Friends with Joel here,
Right.
and he invited me to come and do this. I'm very excited. I'm a bit of a movie nerd myself, so I was drawn to your guys' podcast before I ever knew who any of you guys were. So it's great.
Ooh.
Now, you're sitting down. Is that going to be a problem?
Sitting down.
My
Yeah,
bad.
we're on a roll.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
See, this is why I really want Michael to do stand-up at some point, to do all these really, like, dumb dad jokes.
Oh my god,
just
no,
on stage.
it'll only encourage him, because for some reason there's going to be like maybe 13 people in a room of like 100 who are going to absolutely find him hilarious or going to be like, God damn it.
And I would be one of them.
I always encourage anybody who says like, "Oh, I've always wanted to try stand up, but I don't think I could do it." I've always said, just do it, because you'll find out real quick whether you want to keep doing it or
Oh,
not.
yeah. Oh, totally.
Understandable.
Oh yeah,
I have heard
very.
horror stories
Yeah.
from other stand-up comedians that people backstage turn on each other. You should do it this way, or what are you doing it? Why do you do it this way?
Oh.
Stuff like
No,
that.
you don't give
It-
notes to each other.
And it's not always like that, but there definitely is scenes that are like that. Denver, I'm just now getting into the Denver comedy scene, and it is. Any comedian will tell you that it is the best in the country. Like it's probably
Oh,
the
yeah,
best
like-
local comedy scene.
Which is awesome.
So I hear you may actually have a scary story for us this week.
I do. I like to think that I have quite a few scary stories from my adventures over the years, but my favorite scary story is maybe even not really that scary. It's just it's a true story involving the paranormal. My grandmother, when I was growing up, used to be the janitor at my high school, and I got moved to this high school after my parents got divorced, and I moved from super like upper class white kid high school to Umatilla, Oregon, which is for a guy like me the ghetto.
Okay.
And I was getting beat up a lot, and my parents just didn't want me out in the town. Like if you were under 18, you didn't go outside very much after school.
Wow.
So what I would do after school is I would help my grandmother clean the buildings, clean the high school. She had bad knees, and she's actually getting surgery on one of her knees today. So if you're listening, Grandma, good luck with that surgery. Yeah.
We all wish you the best.
And this was my stepmom's Grandma Peg, and she's super into all that paranormal occult stuff. I wasn't really super into it when I was younger. You know, I didn't believe in any of it, but after seeing some of the stuff that she showed me, I definitely do believe in all things ghosts and spirits. We had just a really weird presence in our house growing up, and I would only be there on the weekends, so I didn't really get to see it that much, but my brother told me about it. He really felt scared about it, to the point that my grandma actually came in and did a cleansing on the house. After she went through and did her thing, there was so much less tension in the house. It felt brighter, and so I started kind of reading up on all this stuff and asking her about her experiences. And I'm cleaning the high school with her one day, and I was mopping the bottom area. Is like the gym floor basically, and there's a staircase going down to the gym floor, then a long hallway, then another staircase on the end going up, and I it's really scary in there. Like, it's really dark, and I'm the only one down there because my grandma's upstairs relaxing, and I just feel something weird happening. And every once in a while, I'll feel like a little tickle on the back of my ear or like a poke on the shoulder. And she's told me multiple times, like, this area for some reason is just a hotbed of like spiritual activity. And so I'm at one end of the hallway, and I'm carrying my mop bucket back up the stairs. And all of a sudden, I start to lose balance.
Oh, shit.
I know that I'm going back, and I get to like a 50-degree angle, and I am stopped. Something stops me on my back. Like, I feel like a hand on my back, push me back up, and I just freeze for like a good 30 seconds. Like, what the hell is happening? And I turn around, and there's nothing there. And I go down the stairs, and I look at the other end of the hallway, and there is a tall black man in a suit and top hat who just tips his hat to me and walks up the stairs.
Way.
And I am not fucking around. It was the scariest and coolest thing I've ever seen in my life, and I dropped the mop bucket at this point. I don't give a shit about cleaning anymore. I run upstairs. I'm like, Grandma, what is it? Like, and I tell her everything that happened, and she goes, "Oh yeah, that's Hank. He pinches my butt every once in a while."
My God. So he's not quite as chivalrous as he seems to you.
No. He's definitely a sexual predator, and I think we need to be on the lookout for him.
Yeah. My goodness.
That's awesome.
But how do you catch that kind? Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
There are 3 guys that you can call, from what I hear. 4 guys.
so
there was
who-
4 guys.
4 guys that you can call.
Who is it that you were going to phone?
I think their phone number is 1-800 call a ghost.
The white
person.
stuff.
The white stuff. Ooh, that's an unfortunate name for the Ghostbusters.
Well, at the end of the movie, a lot of the stuff just pours down.
What is the Ghostbusters phone number? They have it on their page or like their
we
commercial.
We believe letter U.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah,
yeah, we believe you. I think. that's
Who are
what it
you
was.
going to call?
Yeah. Oh no. Oh god.
God, that was a really good story though.
That's-
Because
that's solid.
That's intense.
Like I know you mentioned about like pins and needles and stuff, but I mean like I was like I have to sit kind of upright and close to the microphone and everything, but I was also managed to get on the edge of my seat.
Oh wow.
So like I've been like I'm sitting over here like a question mark, just listening to your story, and it like the hand in the back. I was like, to me, the way it was set up was like a twist. I'm like, oh, it's a good ghost.
Yeah, no, I'm the M. Night Shyamalan of ghost stories.
And I've been dead ever since, and this is my nightmare.
Did you ever see him again after
I
that?
never saw him again. Did
you continue cleaning?
I
or-
didn't.
Did you
actually.
ever go back down there? I mean, like, yeah, I would be like, I never saw him because I left.
No, but every time I would go down that hallway, I'd try to tell my friends about it, and they'd be like, "Shut up, you're stupid."
See, how old were you?
I was like 15.
Oh, okay, see, I would have been hanging out down there all the time trying to make contact with him.
No,
This is
Hank.
and it was at the
Hank.
it was at the time when I was still relatively new to that sort of thing, so
Right.
I was not having it at all. Like,
Oh yeah.
I was frightened. I didn't sleep for days.
You
after
didn't
that.
care
Like,
if it was
I
a good ghost.
See,
No.
As somebody who doesn't believe in the supernatural and that kind of
What?
things. Okay. I'm more of a scientific.
You don't got to
brain.
change your stance now just
No,
because
I'm
the
not-
guest doesn't like you.
I'm not changing my stance.
All right.
But from hearing from like stories like these and hearing from our good friend Carl, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago, he works in the paranormal, and hearing their experiences makes me want to believe.
Yeah,
And
yeah, no,
because there's,
definitely.
I wouldn't say I would call it evidence necessarily, but it's crazy to think that these things actually happen to people.
Yeah.
Like there's no way to explain with science what happened to you.
Exactly.
At all, and that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, and even as
Or
like
maybe
a
there is.
even as
Who
like a
knows?
13, 14-year-old when she was first telling me these things, I was like, it's got to be like a brain thing.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I fooled myself into seeing that. But I've seen things since then, and the research that I've done, I can't ignore it.
Right.
But I do understand where you're coming from. At the time when she was teaching me this stuff, I really was pessimistic about it. Like, there's no way that it could be, but I wanted to be open to that experience, and I think that could be what allowed me to eventually start seeing things every once in a while.
I think a lot of people's experiences are in their head too.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
they fully believe that it really happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why a lot of stuff kind of comes off as not as real.
Yeah.
And that's what makes people skeptical. So,
And you guys said scary story. You didn't say prove that there's ghosts.
No.
You know what I mean?
where's the picture?
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Pics or it didn't happen.
But that's that's one of the reasons why I love the Ghost Hunter show is because they don't look at a piece of dust in a frame and go, oh my God, it's a ghost. They go, it's dust. And they would always debunk things and try to get, like if people were to hear a door slamming over and over, they would try to set it up to make the door slam.
Well, but on that show also, they have a tendency of trying to make drama from nothing.
Yeah.
I will tell you,
that's a reality show.
from somebody who believes in this stuff. I don't watch Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures or anything like that because it's so overproduced.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is not how somebody reacts when they see something like that. Like it is when somebody actually experiences fright like that, it is very noticeable, whether it's audio, video, anything like that. There was a short film. I don't even know if it was really a short film, an independent film that was going around. I'm pretty sure it's still on tour, but it came through Denver a few months ago called Sir No Face. I don't know if you guys have heard about that at all. No. It's a documentary about the first and only ever team of ghost hunters that were contracted by the Australian government. To come and check out this old, I believe it was a sanatorium or something. And the way that they marketed it was, we've taken this to debunkers, we've taken this to other filmmakers, we've taken this to CGI special effects people, and there is nobody who can tell us that this is not definitive proof of ghosts. And like the week before it came to Denver, I had tickets and I gave them back because there was just so much hate on it that I was like, I don't want to spend $30 a ticket to go see this, and then for it to be just a big fuck you, to 150 people in a theater. So there are definitely accounts. I almost believe people more when they're telling me in person about their experiences versus seeing it on video.
So to move on to the next thing, what have we been watching this week, guys? You know what? What have you been watching this week, Nick?
I got on to Amazon Prime and checked out The Tick, the new series, The Tick. I loved The Tick growing up. I even loved that one season Patrick Warburton live action show that came out.
Yeah.
And I will say that while I did enjoy that show, this one was so insanely cool to me because of the way that they portrayed the Tick.
Yeah,
it holds up so well.
Yeah. And this isn't really a spoiler or anything like that, but for the first couple episodes, you don't know if the Tick is an actual superhero or if he is in Arthur's mind.
Yeah,
because Arthur is a crazy person. Like they've basically said that he has had mental health issues in the past and that he's seen things in the past, so he doesn't even know. And
the story arc was genius.
Oh, it's very good.
Joel, go.
Yes. Am I the only one here right now watching American Horror Story?
I watched the first 2 episodes and I went.
So I'm going to say yes.
Yes, you are.
It's getting really good, and it's probably my new favorite one.
Get out of town, your new favorite one.
Yeah. American Horror Story, you got to stick with it. Like, I quit watching Hotel halfway through because I thought it was getting shitty. And everyone goes, well, the second half was the best. And it was kind of the same thing with Roanoke. A lot of people stopped watching it, and I go, but the second half was the best.
Yeah. And so how many seasons are there?
I think this is 7, yeah.
And they're all a different story.
Completely different stories.
However,
different characters, yeah.
It sounds like their format's the same. The first half sucks, makes people want to quit watching, and the second half is, I'm like, why don't, that's the format.
Not necessarily,
you gotta change.
but before they get to the meat, there has to be a lot of build-up, I guess.
Well,
sure.
It has to happen, or the good stuff isn't good. But it is getting good.
I had that discussion about Community with somebody. They were talking about, oh yeah, I really liked Community. I watched season 1, and then I started watching season 2, and it started to get weird. It was like it started to get good. What?
Yeah.
They finally had established the characters, and then they could like play around with them.
Well, I did when Game of Thrones first came out. Everyone was like, Game of Thrones is gonna be the coolest new show ever on TV ever. And I was like, great, let's check it out. And I watched the first episode, and I was like, oh, okay, it's this kind of show. Then I watched the second one and I was like, I don't know if I'll like this. Then I watched the third one and I was like, I can't watch this anymore. And then a few years later, everyone's like, oh my God, Game of Thrones is the best show on TV. So, anyway.
I will watch through this season of American Horror Story. I'm seeing more and more good things about it, but I was so turned off by the first couple episodes. I was like, this is just the same bunk that they've done the past few seasons, and I'm just not interested in doing that. And it's so frustrating because Ryan Murphy's other shows, like American Crime Story and even Scream Queens, have been... Feud was great, but all these shows are really good, and American Horror Story seems to be just stagnant.
Oh no, this is easily my favorite one. Okay. And a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people say, I don't want to watch it because it's political. Why would I want to watch something political? Well, that's the country right now. It's super relatable. You cannot go on Facebook without seeing a bunch of yahoos writing. Thanks for listening, by the way. Writing extreme left and extreme right things, and that's what people remember. Is the extreme right and the extreme left. Doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum. That's what's most memorable for me anyway.
Right.
And that's what they're portraying in the thing.
Do you think that people are afraid to check out, especially this season, because it hits so close to home for a lot of people? Because we are living in such a state of fear, they don't want to turn on their TV and be more afraid?
Quite possibly.
I think that's where I am a little bit, where I was like, all right, I'm already freaked out with where our country is right now. I don't need to be spending more time feeling that anxiety.
Right.
So that's why I've kind of...
Same,
and it's not... But, and
same
it's not
reason
all
I don't
bad,
watch
but
Dance Moms.
Right.
Yeah,
Which reminds me, welcome to Dance Moms Watch, where we talk about Dance Moms.
Joel, what's happening?
Well, let me tell you. Okay. A lot has happened since we've last had a Dance Moms Watch. The biggest thing most recently is that the Minis and one Elite Team member who went back to Abby's studio were kind of screwed over because Abby posted on social media one day when they were supposed to have a class that she wasn't coming back to the studio ever. And they got this via social media, so they were not happy. Now, the former Elite Team has gone through a few choreographers, and not their most recent, but the first dance they did, they were very criticized for because it was very, shall we say,
Political?
Provocative.
Was that the one that you commented on?
No. This one was they were in like black bras and black hot pants and on chairs, very Chicago,
or Sweet Charity or something.
Yeah, but it wasn't seen that way because they're 14 and 15-year-old girls. And it was. I'm not going to say that the dance was bad because they did a good job. They always do a good job. It wasn't the right choreography. They weren't the right costumes. I was disappointed that Abby walked out before it even started because she saw the costumes and left. But whatever, that's that. And
was that the reason why she left? She's like,
no,
these
because
costumes.
These were her former students at this point anyway. But the most recent dance that I've seen is the one with the red hats, the one that you saw. Yeah. I believe it was called The Protest. It was one of the best dances I've seen.
It was good.
And spoiler alert, they came in 5th place.
What?
Which is really low for them. So
I did notice, okay, with this dance.
Thank you, Nick.
From my point of view, when I watched the dance, there was I don't see why they got 5th because it was a very solid dance, but there was a lot of timing issues with some of the dancers. They didn't feel like they knew their choreography or didn't feel comfortable with it.
Oh, that'll do it.
But it was a solid dance.
Yeah, the level they're at too. Plus, not only that, but they're working with different choreographers. Sometimes some of them haven't even worked with these people before. But the level they're at, it's got to be tight. They have to be together.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's probably what put them in 5th place. Is like I noticed, and if I noticed that choreography isn't straight on, it's something where.
And for those who watch the show, it was Kendall. It's always Kendall. I love Kendall to death,
Kendall.
But it was Kendall.
I gotta say that as a fan, when you guys first started doing this Dance Moms Watch, I imagined everyone with smiles and giggling and everyone like maybe it's a joke thing. I'm actually invested now.
I know,
and
that's the whole point.
It's so amazing hard to say that I'm a fan of Dance Moms, and I've never even seen the show.
Yeah,
I just look forward to the
exactly
Dance
where
Moms
I'm
Watch.
at. We were talking about this last week, where it started off as a stupid joke, and now we're like really invested in what's going on.
Yeah.
I will never watch this show. I will put that out. Like flat out, I won't watch it. But I'm super interested in this group of dancers.
Yeah, I just watched a grown man give an analysis of a bunch of 13-year-olds on a dance competition show. It's crazy.
I think 6 years invested in the show, and I can't I can't just stop watching it.
Michael, let's talk about Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yes.
Ooh.
And I don't know the new theme song yet, so I can't sing it. Even if it were allowed, I couldn't sing it. But
It's allowed. We just have to pay money, so don't.
Oh, right,
It's-
right. But
it's
I mean,
good.
any chance to have a conversation with Rachel Bloom, I would love. The show started off amazing. It has continued to be amazing. And what I want to say, I've only watched the premiere episode
yep.
so far. But what I want to say is that it's such a good example of somebody having their storyline, their game plan in place for X number of seasons. And in that sense, it's like Lost, where J.J. Abrams says, no, we're doing 6 seasons. And yeah, things changed. They had to fire actors. Some people quit, blah, blah, blah. And so they had to adjust little bits. But overall, the vision was intact for that show.
Right.
And you have so many syndicated shows that they just, well, what new shenanigans can we create to keep this limping along for another season? And I hate that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you watch the last 2 seasons of Friends, you watch these long-running sitcoms that should not have run that long, but they kept making money. People kept watching it, and not so with this. Each season furthers the plot. The one thing that I will say is that I want to see a new character who is as dynamic as Greg.
When somebody pitched me the show, they said it's Flight of the Conchords, but from a female perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like super intriguing. And having, I was like, oh, it's it's CW, so it's gonna be kind of a shitty show. But honestly, CW is doing some really cool things with their shows. And they've fallen kind of by the wayside with The Flash and Arrow. Those shows have kind of stunk the last couple seasons, or especially Arrow. But Legends of Tomorrow is the new Doctor Who. It is so good.
And it has characters from Doctor Who.
Yeah,
Which is so weird because when that came out, I was like, this is going to be the stupidest show of the 3 of these shows.
Right.
Or the 4 of these shows was like Supergirl and stuff. But yeah, I started watching it again, and it's more enjoyable than any of those other superhero shows on that channel.
Oh, totally. There is like a sexy number in the second episode where obviously she's trying to get back at Josh. All right. And there's a line that they had to switch, and I posted about this on Facebook.
Oh yeah,
I saw that. Yeah.
Where
I didn't know what you were talking about, so now, okay.
but the original lyric that she was supposed to sing in the song was "I'm so wet," and
Dude, I'm so wet.
"Dude, I'm so wet," and the network's like, "No, that's not okay." But they were fine with "choke on your cocksuredness," which I thought was like, how is that
20 times worse.
Yeah, it's 20 times worse. It's so much worse. But I mean, it's a lot funnier. I thought it was great. Like it fit in the song perfectly. But how are we as a society where saying like very basic female sexuality is wrong, where we could say I'm so wet and that's wrong? There was in the song, or in another song, a guy talked consistently about coming in another song. It was all, well, I won't spoil it because I don't want to ruin that song for Michael because he needs to hear that song.
But that is just the fact that girls aren't allowed to be gross, and when guys are gross, it's funny. And so it's when it's anything that has to do with a man's body parts, even if a girl is saying it. Like if a girl's talking about her husband farting, that's hilarious. If she talks about herself farting, half the audience, who is the men, are turned off for some reason.
Nah, it's hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. But that's like that old South Park episode that got a bunch of grief, where the guys always thought that farting was hilarious, but when the girls talked about queefing, it turned into like a terrorist act. You know.
I think in that particular moment, it's not necessarily society; it's the jackasses in Hollywood. I mean, really. I mean, like these are the same people. Harvey Weinstein. I mean, like these are things where it's like, no, it's not society. I do not think that the MPAA represents America at all.
No,
yeah.
I
at
agree.
all. And so suddenly when that stuff happens, I'm like, no. Don't confuse my American society with controlling people and that kind of stuff. I mean, there's tons of things where, anyway, that's all. You go for it. I watched a bunch of stuff.
Holy crap! Is that your list?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Well, I didn't, because I was sick for like 2 weeks.
Oh,
so I watched
that's
a ton
right.
of
Okay.
stuff too. But one thing that I just watched yesterday was a very interesting amalgamation. I watched Kung Fu Yoga, starring Jackie Chan on Netflix.
Yes.
And there's a picture of him like doing like a pose and then doing like a Van Damme splits. Like he's holding himself up. He's like doing like a yoga thing and he's in splits. Fun fact, spoiler, that didn't happen at all in the movie. Not the whole damn thing. But it's a very interesting a combination of Hong Kong movie scene, which is now has since moved to Vancouver, so there's a lot of a lot of snow shots.
Yeah.
With Bollywood.
Yes.
And I was like, this is a long time coming.
Just to piggyback on that real quick, I saw one of his other more recent films that he did with Johnny Knoxville called Skip Trace.
Oh, I was thinking that's all on my list.
There is an entire out of nowhere.
Never heard of it.
I think it went straight to Netflix.
Yeah, I won't spoil the movie. It is a pretty fun Jackie Chan kung fu film, but just in the middle of the desert somewhere, all of a sudden it breaks out into a full-fledged rendition of "Rollin' in the Deep" by Adele, with
So
Johnny
fun.
Knoxville and Jackie Chan singing with a bunch of people who shouldn't know what that song is. Yeah,
I love
it's
it when that
crazy.
happens. They did that in Clerks too. Also,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love
Yes.
it when they do that.
Yes.
It's just a big random Jackson 5 dance number.
Yeah.
I also watched a movie called Security with Antonio Banderas playing an ex-American American Army guy. Came back and he was like a captain, so he's really hard to get work because they're like, no, you have to be like a boss. And you're gonna be like a manager. Nobody's hiring any managers. And he's like, just give me a regular job. So then they put him as a security guard, and of course that's the one time the shit goes down. And as far as like shit going down in a mall, it was a good shit going down in a mall movie. I liked it better than what is it, Day of the Dead? Honestly,
Wow.
I just saw a trailer for an Antonio Banderas movie.
Antonio Banderas.
Where
Antonio Banderas.
where his wife gets kidnapped, right? And he's
Bad
like
mistake.
he is an actor and he has no idea how to fight at all.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah. So what got me onto this movie, first off, is it's made by Saban. Does anybody else know what Saban makes?
I do.
High Five Power Rangers.
Power Rangers.
They
Oh,
make
that's
Power
right.
Rangers.
Oh, okay.
So
I was going to say it's a pizza
Haim
store. In the mall.
Saban.
Yeah. So talking about Saban, talking about Power Rangers, did you watch the new movie?
I did. I have it on Blu-ray.
And it's awesome.
Yeah,
The new movie is great. That's all I want
I
to say.
severely enjoyed it. I took a bunch of my friends to go see it on my birthday, and I was the only one that was a real fan, and we enjoyed it immensely. I started tearing up at one point. Like as a fan, it was great, but my wife, who never watched Power Rangers growing up, went and saw it and thoroughly enjoyed it. So.
There were a few things that really like got to me. One being like the product placement of Krispy Kreme was probably one of the funniest shit that I've seen in a while.
Actually, it was so blatant that it made me laugh.
Yeah. But the callback to the original soundtrack, where they did that right when the Zords came out.
Yep.
It was so good, and I was crying. I was like, I listened to the soundtrack on my cassette consistently until I wore out that cassette because I listened to it on repeat over and over and over again because that original soundtrack was so good.
I have a metal cover of the theme song on my iTunes that I listen to constantly.
Noise.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you guys. And this question is something that we've explored not on our podcast, but on Chasing the Mind with Dr. Angela and Dr. Stephanie.
Can I do my impression of the Chasing the Mind guy now?
Yes.
If you're listening, this is you. Chasing the Mind.
Nice.
It was right on. That was solid.
Thank you.
Now say with Dr. Charles.
Chasing the Mind with Dr. Charles Joseph Kelly.
So doctors, you can borrow our sound bites, you know.
See, now they're gonna, because our show hasn't aired yet of theirs, so they're gonna like re-edit it to make us all sound like terrible people.
Dr. Angela, I love you and your husband.
Yeah, you guys are great.
Love you guys. We're Facebook friends.
Seriously, I cannot wait to have you guys on. But that's besides the point. But they asked us a pretty serious question: if comedy stems from pain, and I think that's something that we answered very, very quickly because we were kind of in a rush, and I kind of want to delve into that a little bit more. We were all on the side of No, not necessarily. It can, but I want, because we have a professional comedian here, I want to see what you have to say about this.
Ooh.
That is a question that I get a lot just in talking with people, and in some ways, yes, I think that some of the best comedy does stem from pain. And talking from personal experience, I grew up as an upper middle class white male straight guy. You know what I mean? So there's not a whole lot of pain there, but in thinking back at the time when I decided to do stand up, I was in a very dark place. I was in a bad spot in my life, and that's when I thought, I want to get these feelings out, but I also want to make people laugh. That's all I've ever wanted
You know what?
to do.
Like, and I was thinking about it too. I was pretty much in the exact same boat as well when I decided, you know what, I'm going to do stand up. I mean, I'm not going to like pursue stand up, but I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it.
Give it a try.
Yeah.
Well, and because if you look at someone like we were talking off podcast about Mark Maron,
Right.
That man has made a career of taking his personal pain and anguish and making millions of people interested in what he has to say because of that.
all of the biggest comedians. Look at Louis C.K. Look at Dave Chappelle. Look at all these other comedians.
Go back even further. Bill Hicks.
Yeah,
everything.
everybody.
It does.
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams, of course, that is someone who almost never talked about it on stage, and still, But I would say, because I remember always being an entertainer, like as a kid, always trying to make my family laugh, but actually sitting down and writing about your personal experiences, that didn't come until after my parents' divorce, until after my mom got into an abusive relationship, after a couple of bad breakups that I had, after going through drug problems with friends and stuff. So yes, I do think that it stems from some sort of pain, but it also stems from the people who are comedians who, even in their darkest times, will not let you know that they are hurting.
Right.
Just straight up. They got to make a joke about it.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how I've always felt about it.
So a little of both.
So
a little of both.
I think in the end, when I come up with jokes, it's a majority of it stems from the dark side of things, and that's always how it is. I mean, the start of my Tight Five is talking about porn addiction.
Yeah.
I think it's I don't know. I gave it to Michael. I don't know if he finds it funny, but it's funny. But I mean, like, there are times where you can make light of light situations.
Yeah.
But those are harder to do, I feel.
I'll tell you that, like,
I could talk about this forever, but I'm gonna shorten it up. So basically, I think when I first heard this question honestly asked to me in the podcast, in the other podcast, I think I felt defensive, like somehow my brain read it as, oh, is it possible? Are you anything without your pain? Can you possibly be funny without your pain? I'm like, no, of course I can be funny without my pain. I'm not defined by my bad experiences, and so I just said, no, there's no truth to that, or whatever. But really, what it comes down to is that, like, when I was I don't know about all you guys, but when I was very first funny, it was from a very innocent thing. It was just like, oh, I'm just making grown-ups around me giggle, and I'm getting attention. I'm getting smiles and laughter.
Comedians want the love. They want the attention. What I was trying to say before when I was talking about, like, I didn't feel like I was really funny until I started dealing with my parents' divorce.
Right.
It was the fact that for years, I thought that my mom was choosing her new husband over me and my brother. And so that birthed a 10-minute bit about how my parents don't really love me. And it's hilarious. It gets laughs. And while it isn't true now that I'm old enough to deal with it, as a kid, that's what I remember feeling.
Sure.
I have to be funny or these people will forget I exist.
Yep. That's where it stems from. And that's also what stems podcasts.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, that need to want people to listen to your advice.
I think we all need to call our mommies after this.
Wait, have we been publishing this? I've just been hanging out talking with you guys. I don't know.
Oh yeah, great.
No, seriously, that was my motivation, and that's
we talked about this a little bit.
A decent example, where, I mean, like, sure, I love attention, and most of the time I get that through live theater. And so for me, this podcast is just like, oh, cool, the guys are hanging out and we're just going to chat with people and have fun conversations. And, oh, it happens to be available online for people to listen to. That's cool.
Yeah.
I was just going to say to go a different direction just for a second because, we're talking about stand-up comedy and stuff like that. But there was quite a big community with Vine, which was a huge thing. Vine is gone now.
Is it?
It's gone. Yeah, they got rid of it.
Yeah, you didn't know this?
I
was
never had
huge.
one.
Yeah. Oh, you know what else is gone? Betamax.
But anyway, the Vine community, you see all these people that are these huge Viners, and they do comedy. For those who don't know what Vine is, it was like a 6-second videos that you could post. It was like an Instagram for 6-second videos, basically. You couldn't go any longer than 6 seconds. And people would do. There was some really good stuff out there. There was artsy stuff. There was all kinds of stuff. But the funny people, the ones that I got to know, I mean, I still talk to my Vine friends almost every day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that I connected with through that app, and a lot of them, the really funny ones, were pretty. I mean, we're in shitty situations, divorces, deaths, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
There was a girl that I got became pretty good friends with who lost a child, and she outletted to making vines and trying to be funny. I mean, not right away, but that's how she made herself not be depressed.
I had a really good friend that I went to high school with who her name's Kayla Christine. She's still out there making cool stuff, not on Vine anymore, unfortunately, but still making some very cool stuff. And so look her up if you get a chance. But she kind of garnered this following because she took a stance and kind of I don't think that you can really take a stance against a disease and be a bad person, but she has Crohn's disease.
Okay.
And she used it as a platform to garner awareness around that, and that gave her so much, that her disease had taken away from her, is just the community and stuff around Vine. And she said the same thing. There are people that she talks to like every day from that, just because it garnered a community of people who were not necessarily sad people who wanted to be funny, but people who wanted a community to love them. And I think that's what those communities do.
Well, yeah, and there were a lot of thirsty people too. But,
well, I mean, I made a few, and then
well, okay. Yes.
I have one more little bit to talk about this pain from comedy thing. Just being that, and this is a big point that I think once I say it out loud, you guys are gonna be like, oh yes, and if you don't, you're jerks. But the idea that when you're a kid, you're all about just trying to get the giggles and trying to get laughs and smiles from everybody. But when you get older, it could be something big, like a gig where you're paid to be there, or it could be something like a small talent show with friends, or it could even just be walking around in class and when your friend says, hey, do that thing that's funny, do that thing or whatever, and you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
When you don't feel like it, I think that this is when, the movie Inside Out, when everybody has there's that goofball island. I can speak for everybody when you all and I have our goofball island still. It didn't crumble like that little girl. Everybody, little kids like to be funny, and we're not the only ones. At some point you make a decision, no, I'm more important than being funny. So I'm going to say, I don't feel like doing that bit today, or I'm going to cancel that gig or whatever. But we all have made the decision to go ahead and try to be funny, to do that stuff when we don't feel like it. And that in itself is literally choosing other people's happiness over our own. And the whole question of does all comedy stem from pain, I think brings into the fact that when you're literally a sad clown putting on happy clown makeup, like literally. Anyway, so there's definitely some pain in that. And it's not necessarily like the jokes are coming from that, but it's almost like it hurts a little bit to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, so that's just one of those points that
we hadn't
wear
mentioned
masks. Yeah.
Metaphorically speaking. Dude, we're all so
I get that
funny.
though, Scotty. I think that's good. Like, how many times people have asked me to do an impression when I'm in a shitty mood?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I go, yeah, it's just like I'm not in the mood. I mean, probably everybody has heard me say that. So I get that. Yeah.
I stopped telling people that I was a stand-up comedian when people ask me what I do at airports or things like that, because the first thing is tell me a joke. Yeah, that's like I'm talking to actors here. It's like that's like saying, hey, you're an actor, cry.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sing
Like,
a song.
Sing a really high note.
yeah.
Oh, seriously?
What do you do for a living? Well, I'm an architect. Draft me a building.
house right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so it's just, there's this interesting.
So let's move on, because we've been at this for a good long while.
We've been beating the dead
See, but
documentary
I think
horse
this
on
is I think this is a good conversation, and I think this is something that we're going to be talking about further, because Beat the
Clip,
dead
clap,
horse.
clip,
That's what I mentioned.
But you have a 6 degrees for us.
I do have a 6 degrees.
Nick has a 6 degrees. Of
I decided
separation.
to go with, because you guys talk about it a lot, mainly Joel, but I tried to connect Joel's favorite actress, Laurie Metcalf,
Oh my god, my favorite actress in the entire
to
universe.
my favorite actress, Sigourney Weaver.
Ooh, all right.
And
Now,
that
is this an all-woman one?
this isn't an all-woman one. I
Okay,
heard that
'cause-
on the and that is a very cool idea.
Yeah, it
The
is.
rules of 6 degrees that as they stand and as we have developed them is that you within 6 movies or television shows you need to connect these 2 actors, right?
Great.
Sound guy, quit dropping stuff.
Okay. We can use television. However, it has to be the same episode. So you can use an extra step by connecting one guest star to another guest star through somebody in the show constantly, but that takes 1 degree to do. So that's how we formulated that. And 30 Rock and SNL are off limits because everyone is in those.
Yep.
So,
There's
that's-
also, you need to know the name of the movie and the actor.
name of the movie and name of the actor. We have 4 minutes
Mhm.
on the clock.
Well, not on
And-
the clock yet.
Well, we are going to put it on the clock. And
Where's the
I'm
clock?
stalling for time here. No.
Oh, actually, well, you mentioned there should be an extra punishment or reward for those last-minute twists. I submit we just connect the dots there and make it be a twist, like a twisty cone. If we get it right, then you have to buy us all twisty cones, and if we get it wrong, we buy you
Or a
twisty cones.
Twizzler.
What,
What
you
the
don't
hell is
like
a twisty
cones?
cone?
Well, like when you get the chocolate vanilla or swirl. Oh, I meant to say swirl. Oh, I've
Swirl,
embarrassed
twisty
myself.
cone.
You idiot.
So while Scotty feels bad about himself, and while we
Done.
deliberate this, we're going to take a quick word from our sponsors. All right, time is on the clock, my friends. Let's
Okay.
do this.
Lori Metcalf
Is in
Let's go to our 2.
Hey friends, this is your humble host Charles, just checking in to see how things are going. I have the Stranger Things fever. Were you able to take off the weekend with me to watch it? So we're going to go over a couple quick things and get back to the show as quick as possible. Number 1, we didn't create a movie this week. I know it's the staple of our show, but before you click unsubscribe, listen to the rest of the episode. It's solid, and I think you will like it. We'll be back to creating cool things next week. Starting next week, we're going to be opening up our merch shop and another cool little store. I don't want to talk about it just yet, but we'll have links for that in next week's episode. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. If you guys are interested in buying shirts, if you're interested in buying stickers, we have that stuff available for you. Number 3, if you have a question you've been aching for one of us to answer, hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, our email. We will answer those on our podcast. Links to all of our social medias are in the description of this episode. If we haven't answered your question on the podcast, we've probably answered it on our weekly Facebook Live show. This week was great, with only a few minor hiccups, and check it out. It's loads of fun. Next week, we'll probably be playing Super Mario Odyssey. I think that comes out next week, so that'll be a lot of fun. And finally, if this is your first time listening to the pod, thank you so much for swinging by. Let us know what you're thinking of it. And if you are a regular around these parts, you are what keep us going. Thank you so much for everything you do. We don't pay to promote our show, so the best way for us to grow is by word of mouth. If you have a friend who you think would like the show, let them know. As always, guys, I hope you have an incredible week. And I love you.
Sometimes it can be hard keeping up to date with everything going on in the gaming industry. The Sometimes Geek podcast is a quick and easy listen each week that covers all the major gaming news while giving the opinion of an everyday gamer. You can find it at sometimesgeek.com or on iTunes, Google Play, and wherever you normally grab your podcasts.
1 minute. High five. All right.
Go team.
Go team, go. Okay, so we are back, and we
We
solved
might have
that.
to play that.
That was great.
Well, here's the thing.
That would be entertaining to listen to. I'm just saying. Play the
I'm
audio
still
from that.
I'm still gonna stick to this. 6 degrees of separation is a challenge when it's one person. When it's teams, 6 degrees of separation, we knock them out like crazy.
Well, we're also really good at this, and we're getting better every single week. So we need to have these rules.
That's
like,
why I
put
want
on
the
it.
challenge of I wanted to have to say we should say like we're gonna do an all male one because I think the regular one should be the female one. That should be the go-to.
I think we should add rules like, oh, you can only use science fiction movies, or you have to use horror films for this one, or you can only use or films that start with the letter C or something like that, and make it like really difficult. Like it is possible, but this is how you have to do this.
Oh yeah, you can do that.
So I think that's how we should handle that in the future. But we saw
like
that
my idea better though.
in a minute. So Joel, go. Let us know what it is.
So we started with Laurie Metcalf, my favorite actress in the entire universe. I swear to God. Okay.
Laurie Metcalf, please
have we
subscribe.
mentioned that in this episode?
I'm not sure.
So Laurie Metcalf. I started with Scream 2 because I thought there were more people in that, but I went with Uncle Buck, which of course stars John Candy,
Great movie.
who was in Spaceballs with Rick Moranis, my favorite actor. Yeah. So there we go. This is a great one for me.
I will tell you guys that you guys solved it in a different way than I solved it. Obviously, I found 2 different ways, but you guys almost did it so many different ways, like so close to the ways that I did it. Because
tell us what you
had Laurie Metcalf in Scream 2 with Timothy Olyphant, who was in The Girl Next Door, who had Alicia Cuthbert in it, who was in Love Actually, which starred Alan Rickman, Galaxy Quest, Sigourney Weaver.
Oh my God.
Different way.
Then here we go. This is what I had. Sigourney Weaver, Holes.
Holes, thank you. I mentioned
with
Holes.
Patricia Arquette, who was in Uncle Buck with Laurie Metcalf.
Patricia Arquette's in Uncle Buck?
Yep.
Where is she in Uncle Buck?
I don't remember the old.
So Nick.
Yes.
Nick. No. All right. So
How many times?
We have to.
I bet you've never heard that joke.
I mean, I just was triggered a little bit.
I'm so sorry.
Snowflake.
We have to make you watch a shitty movie now,
No,
dude.
it's an award. Oh, actually,
You know what? I
shitty.
want to give him something good because he had my 2 favorite actors.
I think
actress
that's good,
and
yeah.
actor.
I think that's
fair.
safe. Let's do.
I have 2.
Okay.
If you want.
Yeah.
Have you seen Spotlight?
I have seen Spotlight.
Damn it! It's
yes.
on Netflix. Everybody should watch it.
yeah.
Did you ever watch Big Eyes?
Big Eyes, I have not seen
Big
it.
Eyes is on Netflix. It's the first movie directed by
Tim Burton.
Tim Burton that doesn't have his
Tim
ex-wife
Burton
or
things.
Johnny Depp in it
Yep.
in like 15, 16
And
years.
Danny Elfman
And-
still does the soundtrack, and it does not sound like a Danny Elfman soundtrack.
No, you know why? Because he's versatile.
And no, it's wonderfully casted, and there's only one moment in the entire film where you say, "Oh yeah, this was made by Tim Burton."
Well, I'll have to watch that. My wife and I have been wanting to watch it forever. She's an artist, and so it drew.
So, but
she's
now,
drawn to
but
that
now
first.
you legally have to watch
I
it.
legally-
so
it-
within the
Well,
week.
It will count as a little bit of a punishment because really the guy's a dick. I mean, spoiler, it's in the trailer.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything.
Oh, yeah.
So you're the husband of an artist watching a movie about an overbearing husband of an artist. That counts. So she's gonna be looking at you.
Oh, I bet she's gonna be so mad.
With
at me. She's
really
gonna start like
big
slapping me in my sleep and stuff.
eyes.
I don't
Shouldn't
like
do that already.
Well, she does every once in a while.
I was gonna say your
catch her.
cheeks look kind of red.
Yeah, well,
But it's
I'm
usually
embarrassed.
not a contractual obligation for you to.
Yes, exactly. Now I have to put myself through
Sign
this.
here.
So
sign
so
here.
here's the
Sign here,
contract.
initial.
If
Here's
you
that
ever
for
want to be invited back to the show,
I like what
you
you've
have
done
to.
here.
Yes. Yes.
Squeeze me a baking powder.
So that was awesome. Thanks so much.
That
Yeah,
was actually
it was great.
It was really fun, and I agree with you, Scotty, that the collaboration is what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Because we all think of different things, and we all have different favorite movies, and
I spent 4 hours trying to do this yesterday by myself and got pissed off every time going, this one isn't funny, this one isn't cool, this one and so now, but yeah, when you're with a group of people, it's way better. I tried to do it with my wife who does not watch anything, and it was so hard.
Did you really spend 4 hours doing it?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
websites
Oh, no.
that'll do it like that. They're
Exactly.
calculating.
I was just trying to find a cool one.
I
yeah.
spent a long time on my first one because I wanted to put people in that I know and like,
Oh, yeah,
as
yeah.
well as movies. But I don't think we've yet to come up with the exact answer that someone's presented.
That's
yeah,
true.
exactly.
So I think
that
whenever we
could
come,
be an interesting twist.
That
could
is
be
the
a twist,
twist.
but
How
whenever
would
we-
I do it?
so
How
when we
would
come
you
up
do
with
it?
stuff,
We would need more time
It's
with that. That would have to
basically-
be like a 6-minute one.
it's
but-
basically our safe because they're probably whoever's trying to figure it out is probably not going to get what you came up with.
Yeah.
So, but we
That's
could
wonderful.
go that way
You
if
guys
we
were
get
so
more
close
detailed and
multiple
with
times.
like specifically science fiction or whatever, like you were saying.
Yeah, or we could do it where like you lose points or something like that. Like you have to finish it in 4 points. But if you guys use one that I also used, that point didn't count. That degree doesn't count or something.
And we could, if we upped the ante challenge wise, we could also add Who Wants to Be a Millionaire type lifelines. as well. You know, call a
yeah.
friend. Maybe not specifically the same lifelines, but things like call a friend or
You can look up one movie,
right, exactly,
or one person's
and
name or
there,
something.
there's got to be really
I
that's
like
your
that.
lifeline.
I want to go one step
Like
further.
if you had looked up Catherine O'Hara the week that I stumped you, you would have been able to solve it.
Yeah. So on that same front, what would be the negative? So if we have a lifeline, do we have less time if we use a lifeline?
Ooh, yeah,
yeah.
We have to buy the
cuts
lifeline
30
person a
seconds
twisty
off our
code.
time.
You
Okay,
twisty code?
real life consequences. Like, all right, you get a
I'm gonna slash your tires.
I was gonna say cut off your pinky. Yeah, that's where I was gonna go with it.
Wow.
Well, we can
Yakuza
only
with
play
it.
that so many times, though.
Oh, come on. There's 4 of us.
That's
That's 40 games.
that gives like actual like you don't want to use this, but if you don't want to watch this crappy movie, but I mean that pinky is looking really good right now.
Let's do some homework and come up with a lifeline and a consequence.
Yeah.
I think we should go one further and have physical challenge. Okay, there's like a mountain to
Double
slide.
dare. You have to pick it out of the big nose.
We have to
Find the flag.
we have to climb to the top of the aggro crag, hit the button.
Guys,
Wall.
what? You're telling me you don't want to do that? Come on.
Oh
We
man,
already
that's
did a
marvelous.
game show.
Next
We
time on Nick
Yeah.
at Night.
Can I do my Regis Philbin impression?
Yes, do it.
Yeah.
Who wants to be a millionaire?
Who wants to be a millionaire?
I love watching how different stand-up comedians segue. Can I just say, and we can use this as a segue. Just especially when a stand-up comedian like acknowledges how difficult segues are, and then they just jerkily go right into the next thing.
like
you know,
like the Bo Burnham thing.
like
Segues are
Burnham,
weird.
Brian Regan does it as
yeah.
well. You know, like especially when he's doing his encores because people call out their favorite bits. You know, and he's like, "Pop-Tarts, okay, so." Pop-Tarts.
Yeah.
It's marvelous. It's marvelous. So, we talked about a lot of stuff from the comedian's perspective just a little bit ago. This next question is more about the audience.
Okay.
And it's about offense culture, especially in social media in the United States. It's very prevalent, very pertinent question. How does the PC and outrage culture affect comedy, whether it's stand-up or sketch comedy or any of the mediums?
I mean, and this is something that comedians will talk about forever, and yes, and it always has been a discussion. But because of social media and because of the wide array of different types of comedians you can see on different forms of different streaming platforms and things like that, it's becoming more and more prevalent. But you know, Mel Brooks just got on, he was on some show or released a statement saying that PC culture is the worst thing to ever happen to comedy in general, and I do believe that. I grew up in an era of listening to comedians who did not. There were clean comedians out there, and I do still love people like Brian Regan, who just works clean, and he doesn't ever offend anybody, and somehow he is one of the biggest comedians in the world. But I have never enjoyed going on stage and worrying about what I can and can't say. When I do colleges, I always ask, is there anything that's off limits? And I pray that there is never anything, you know, but that's becoming less and less likely. Owen Benjamin got on Twitter and basically got into a big Twitter battle with these comedians, and basically it got onto the subject of transgender children, and how there was this guy who was he believed basically that this man should not be giving hormone blockers to his 4-year-old daughter because he believed that she was trans, instead of letting her go through puberty and discover that on her own, because you know, that is a big thing on stage right now, is that when people do talk about trans issues, there is a butthole clenching in the audience that is very, very prevalent, and so
You can smell.
yes,
the
you can
clenched
smell the
assholes.
clench, and because of his stance on that, he was fired from his agency. He has had colleges pull him out of their lineup. So it really is. It's a slash at freedom of speech in all its forms. When somebody says you can't go there, or we will punish you, that is something for children. As an adult, that is a basic American right to be able to say whatever you want.
Yeah.
And it's up to you whether you want to be liked by other people or not. Not for them to tell you, we are going to fire you if you say this.
Right. Well, and then you get into in the world of politics. Like, for instance, I don't know if you guys ever read about this, but there was some article I saw about puns being illegal in China. And I was very interested to read that, and I have some friends who actually do live in China and know a little bit of the language, and so I got some clarification on that. And as it turned out, one of the country's leaders, I can't even pretend to know the political structure of how China works, but one of the political leaders, his name in Chinese had a remarkable similarity to the Chinese word for marijuana. And so it was specifically that pun that was banned because of a petty leader of the country.
Wow.
Saying, no, you can't because that hurts my feelings.
God,
kind of
that's
thing.
so ridiculous.
It is. It absolutely is. And you were saying about Brian Regan being a clean comedian. I agree. At the same time, I think what he does is he actually turns most of the insults on himself.
Mm-hmm.
So self-degradation is about the only way to not offend other people, because you're like, well, I'm making fun of myself, so you can't be offended.
Yeah.
But then it's also tricky because, like, when you get, like, say, a heavy comedian, but they're making fun of themselves because they're fat, and then they piss off fat people.
See, this is kind of where
That's where I get upset.
I wanna first say that I don't think that PC culture is the issue necessarily. I think that wanting to treat each other with respect is not a bad thing.
No.
I think it's outrage culture, and I try to when I try to explain these things, I try to separate those two concepts from each other. I do think that there are a lot of people in the PC culture who have a tendency of living in outrage culture, but on the other completely end, the anti-PC culture, there are a bunch of people who are outraged at every single last little tiny thing, and it's a consistent issue. And it's not a liberal issue. It's not a conservative issue. This issue like stems on all sides
It's
of
a
the
personality
spectrum.
type.
It stems from a lot of different things. I don't think you can say point out one specific thing. And if somebody says it's one specific thing, I think it's ridiculous. But major points, social media allows people to be offended. The media posting clickbait titles allows people to get offended very easily because they don't have to read articles, and there's a lot of people who don't.
It sucks that we have to refer to clickbait as the media. That's just a statement.
I do feel that nope, I'm not gonna put a quarter in the politics jar. We're not gonna go to there.
Okay, well then let me jump in then if I can.
Yeah.
Just to change, I guess to slightly change gears. I think part of the offense culture is that we are so well connected that you can share things out of context. When you're doing a comedy show, it's all about creating this atmosphere of giggles, of free. Jim Carrey has this way of talking about comedy where he's freeing people from concern, and I love that phrase because the idea is that everything outside this room kind of sucks balls right now, but in this room we're loose, we're a little bit alcoholed up, we're greasing the wheels here, and we're able to giggle because at some point when you start doing jokes, when you're at a comedy gig, when you are hanging out with friends and you're a beer or two in, even things that kind of shouldn't be funny kind of start to become more funny.
Oh yeah,
and once you loosen that, once you free that concern, then you can kind of move things forward, and you can talk about slightly more taboo things in a way where people are like, yeah, you know what, that was stupid of me to be wagging my finger at that. It is stupid. I am stupid. This comedian's helped me realize things.
Yeah, and there is something like that going on in the Denver scene right now. I won't go too far into it because I don't know the whole story. But, there are people who go see a comedy show and say, I didn't enjoy that. I'm not going to go see that guy if I'm not going to go see a show if that guy's on the lineup. That's just my personal opinion. Then they go home and they go see another comedy show and they love it. And they say, that person's great. The difference is that right now, and I think what you were saying about the, what was it? The not PC culture, but
Offense culture.
Offense culture, yes. That is what I meant, I think, when I was talking about that, because then there are people who go see a comedy show, and this is happening right now, so be aware of it. But there are people who go see a comedy show, see a comedian they don't like, and instead of saying, you know what, I didn't really appreciate his comedy, I'm going to go find a comedy show that's more for me. They decide they're going to go home, blog about it, blog about how this person should never be allowed to do comedy again, post it. Their followers get on the venue who put him up on stage and say, if he is coming back, we will never go to your venue again.
It's crazy because this is happening in every single market right now, where people have realized a great way to get rid of people is to go straight to the pocketbook.
Yes.
To go straight to the venue, go straight to those people. Right. And it's that mind switch that needs to be turned off immediately.
And it's so silly too. Like I'm never eating Chick-fil-A again.
Well,
or I'm never
it's
that
not
kind of
that.
stuff.
It's like going to the manager and saying, if
I
I come here and eat chicken
yeah.
again, then I'm going to sue you guys for eating chicken.
Right.
Well,
that's
I like those ideas because in a capitalistic society, money is the part of it, and so it just sucks that we're using it on these micro issues and not like the Koch brothers or whatever. And I don't mean to throw all these political stuff out there, but I mean like there's some serious problems in America, and we're fighting about one guy or girl on stage in Denver. Like that shouldn't be where our passions are. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's a waste of time.
Because we have these micro aggressions, we have these micro problems because there's some serious stuff going on in America in all 50 states and the territories and everything, and we're focused on. It's like we only have the energy for the small things and not the big things. Because I'd want to keep sharp at Amazon, even though they still have ads on Breitbart. And I'm like, damn it, you know.
I see us focusing on the smaller issues as more of an issue of wanting to feel important.
Yeah,
because
I can control things. I can control.
Exactly.
Why be lost?
And I think that's where people stem from, and I wanna try to understand people as much as possible.
Not me. I say forget them. I'm just kidding.
But I mean, like, I don't.
That's an
I also
offensive joke
try to, when I say I want to understand somebody, I don't want to agree with them necessarily, but understand where they're coming from and stuff like that. And a lot of these times when people have these outrage culture moments, they're just. I want to know what they're thinking when they're doing this. So, like, instead of saying, "Hey, I'm going to make sure that you're not hired for any other gig," saying, "Hey, dude, that was fucked up. Why were you saying that?"
Yeah.
Oh, and then we can have a dialogue and have a conversation.
That's just the thing. People do not want to talk to you face to face anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an old comedian's hack bit about, how kids are so they're sitting right next to each other and they're texting each other because they don't want to have that face to face conversation. That is the world that we live in now. And I bringing it back to movies, because this is a movie podcast. If you
it's a podcast.
What? No, but and also bringing it back to someone like Mel Brooks, Blazing Saddles would not be made today.
No.
And if it was made today, it would have to be made by some fringe, crazy, movie company that's like, we're gonna say fuck the system and we're gonna make a movie that we want to make. When back in the 70s when that movie came out, it was just the next comedy from Mel Brooks. You know what I mean? And while it does have a lot of themes that I think do offend people and that we have grown to be like, all right, that's not exactly cool, that movie does have its place, but you will never see a movie that deals with those subjects again, ever, because you can't say those things and not have your wallet be hurt as a movie studio.
Sure.
I like that actually, because it's similar to, look at how far we've come in the last 50 years from like cinema and television. Like there are interracial couples on TV and in the movies, and I don't bat an eye. I hope none of you guys bat an eye. No. 50 years ago, 60 years ago, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
That was a we're never gonna watch CBS again type thing.
Yeah.
And my God, what are we keeping from our future?
Yeah.
Because of this offense culture, to be like, no, it's not just about you can't offend me. It's about you can't even touch my you can't even get me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that's part of that. That's a big problem. There's something else that somebody has said recently about how nowadays it's like you can't talk to somebody if they don't agree with you. Like
yes.
You should be able to say, oh, that's interesting. I don't agree with any of that, but okay then. Not F you and I'm going to get the hell out of here.
That's what I was going to say, because I go talk about Facebook for a second because I write things on Facebook a lot that some people would say are controversial.
Joel has
What?
quit Facebook
You?
and come back 17 times.
But not true. But I do like to. People call me a quote pot stirrer unquote, or whatever you want to call it. But it's really not true. I just want to start a conversation.
Yeah.
I may say it in an offensive way to you, but that doesn't mean that it changes the way that it shouldn't change the way you feel. The way I'm saying, well, I mean, I can't even think of an example, but I'm just trying to get people to talk and have a discussion. And usually it's in fact, not usually, but it's rarely people that I don't even, or most often, people that I don't even know that get the most, hurl the most insults. And I'm like, I don't even know this person. Who are they?
But that's exactly what it is. Yeah, exactly.
Whereas if I were to sit down with people I know, or even people I don't know, and talk about it, they would be like, oh, that's interesting. I never thought about transgenders in the military that way. You know what I'm saying? So, but I was going to say too, you were talking about the interracial thing because it was recently within the past year or so that they made a freaking Cheerios commercial with a white mom, a black dad, and a mixed kid.
Yeah.
And people got upset and said they weren't going to buy Cheerios and blah, blah, blah. And I watched the commercial like 25 times. I didn't even realize it was an interracial couple.
Yeah.
Like, it
Cheerios,
didn't even
Cheerios
cross my mind.
stock
It didn't occur to you.
Cheerios stock plummeted so much that they were afraid to ever, like they went back into their marketing session and said, what can we do to immediately reverse this? Like they thought of going the complete opposite way, like all white people, white picket fence. Like they had actually thought about that.
Is that the most ridiculous thing
They
ever?
actually did whitewashing for their wallet.
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's kind of ridiculous.
I'd rather be like a Levi's or J.C. Penney or whatever, where they're like, nope, F you, we're going to keep doing this.
Which is is so exciting to me that a show that I thought growing up really opened my eyes to different types of people on television.
Yeah.
Will and Grace.
Yeah.
Coming back to NBC, the biggest network on television, and when that show was first on TV, those were the only gay people I ever had any interaction with. I lived in a small town, Oregon, where if somebody was gay, they were not coming out in the early 90s. And so the fact that came back, I know for a fact that I was the only, straight white guy in my friends group to be like, yes, I'm so excited. But also that I didn't realize how much that show couldn't be made in the years leading up to this. You know what I mean? It had its place in the mid 90s and early 2000s. And then for some reason, there was like a long period where a show like that wouldn't succeed. There's been multiple gay and lesbian shows on television that have not succeeded. And it's because people didn't watch them, or people wrote in to say things like, I'm not going to watch this because there's gay people on it.
I never watched the first run of Will and Grace. I just never saw it.
Okay.
But I've been watching. I watched a couple episodes of the new one, and it's really freaking fun.
It's very funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's funny. I mean, back in the day, though, he was literally competing with like Mad About You, Seinfeld,
Friends,
all kinds of stuff. Yeah. I mean, so at some point, I'm like, guys, I got to do homework. I'm in high school.
I wanted to go back to the comedy thing for 1 second because I think it was Daniel Tosh, but I could be wrong.
Michael wanted to talk about this.
Oh, I did.
Do you want to?
No, Joel,
tell me your bit.
Well, I think it was Daniel Tosh that said, I can't agree with you if you say there's nothing funny about blank.
Yes.
Is that the
that
thing?
Is him. That is him.
So I might misquote it. So
I don't know the exact quote either, but it's something like that.
But if you say there's nothing funny about blank, and I mean, you gotta just be a little more open. Take something that's super awful and controversial. There's nothing funny about child molestation. That's a very touchy subject. And not a lot of people even are comfortable talking about it. But to make jokes about it.
The Daniel Tosh bit that got him a lot of attention and that ultimately almost made him step away from stand-up a little bit, because he's still out there doing it, but you don't hear about him doing stand-up as much. You see him on his television show and he stays in his lane because he knows that Comedy Central will let him do anything. But his joke is, my girlfriend has a rape fantasy. She likes to fantasize that she was never raped. And then a girl in the audience stands up and says, there's nothing funny about rape. You can't talk about rape. And he goes, okay, wouldn't it be really funny if this girl got raped on her way to her car in the parking lot? Just a throwaway line to shut up a heckler.
Right.
And that shut him down.
Yeah.
No one would hire him.
there's-
Everyone was threatening
And
him.
that's the whole conversation about context with the joke. Because you like shit like that is understandable that he got a lot of shit for that because that's a fucked up thing to say. But when you have people who like RuPaul getting super in trouble by the gay and trans community for saying the word tranny when RuPaul is the one person
And
who's,
she-male was the other word.
Yeah, exactly. But like having RuPaul get in trouble for that when RuPaul is a champion of gay rights.
Only one of the biggest.
Or Patton Oswalt had the same, he had a comedy bit recently where he talked about this, where do you want people to accidentally say the wrong pronoun and have love in their heart? Or do you want somebody who can say everything proper and then just hate you and despise you, but they're able to say the right words? Like, Michael and I talked about this on the ride here about the difference between context of the joke, like what you were trying to do, and the impact that the joke had. So like what your original meaning, and it's the same thing with our short film. You know, the way that people saw it in the end are completely different than what our original intentions were. Does that make them wrong? No, I don't think so. And that's where it's this situation. And I mean this conversation. I don't want to make any of us seem like we're like, oh, people are so stupid for doing this. It is such a like a gray situation. It isn't a black and white situation that we're dealing with here, and it's not something that's going to be solved that we can have on like a conversation on a podcast.
Right. We're not going to solve this in an hour-long episode.
No.
In our ivory tower
in a basement with 5 white guys.
Yeah.
You know, and it's that's just
Well, I'm
that
half
situation.
Mexican.
Yeah. 4.5.
Oh my god.
Oh, 4.5 men. That's the situation. Ooh,
That's
that's
saying. Okay. I don't know. I think that I mean, just something to put out there. I mean, like when people say, I don't know, like there's this whole thing, of course, you know, like, oh, you such and such is never funny, or this is never funny, and I'll use like kids' versions of it, so we don't have to go get dark or anything. But like at some point, a 7th grade girl is going to say, guys, stop it. Diarrhea is not funny. Okay?
Yeah.
And that alone, by the way, even with that voice, kind of funny. You laughed. I think what they mean to say is that there's a difference. There is good jokes and there is shock comedy.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
And shock comedy
said.
has a whole list of shit that ain't funny.
Yeah.
Because if you just walk out and go, dead babies, or, you know, child molestation, not funny. But if you say that damn David Spade joke about like a you know, the Gap girls, when he's like, oh, you said that you think that Michael Jackson went to Target because there was a sale. No, damn it, you're saying the joke wrong. He went to Target because he heard little boy's pants were half off.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
like, that's
And it got
funny.
And it gets a grown laugh, but it gets a laugh.
It gets a grown laugh, but it gets a laugh because it's actually like, work the damn joke. That's funny.
And somebody who is amazing at that gets a lot of heat and doesn't really seem to care, but did get affected by it, is someone, Anthony Jeselnik. Do you guys know?
Oh
him?
yeah, I love Anthony
Yeah,
Jeselnik,
and
but
he got-
to a certain extent because he does have a tendency of leaning into the shock humor. of
Well,
things.
yes, and you know, and I don't know, those of us that live in Colorado, I don't know if he used to play here all the time. Denver has the best comedy audiences in the country, and he hardly to never works here anymore because he did a joke that, and this is what I'm moving into what I did want to talk about, is about how the offense culture tends to somehow has this power to influence huge businesses, corporations like Twitter, have the power to influence lawmakers now. One thing that Owen Benjamin, the guy that got fired for talking about the trans issues, said is that there are things that have come about with PC culture and this offense culture that are just not right. The fact that in California, specifically in the Los Angeles area, it is no longer illegal. It is no longer a federal offense to give someone AIDS knowingly and not tell them, but it is illegal to use the wrong pronoun when talking to somebody now. So it is now more illegal to name call than it is to kill someone. Jesus. And so, you know, someone like Anthony Jeselnik will come on and say, will go on Twitter and say around something as bad as the Aurora theater shooting and say, you guys, your thoughts and prayers are worthless. get out there and do something about it, be educated. And people got mad at him. And so instead of trying to have this big, lengthy discussion about how we need to get out there and do something about it, instead of saying anything like that,
He'll make jokes.
He made jokes. Yeah, he just said, after it happened, one of his first tweets was, "But how was the movie?"
Yeah.
Well, but yeah, that's an old joke too.
Yes.
Other than that, Mrs. Kennedy, how was Dallas?
Yes, exactly. And the fact that someone, and I get it. When I heard that, it pained me as someone who is scared to go to movies because they're afraid of getting shot all the time now. That joke did pain me. But am I gonna go out and write a blog about how Anthony Jeselnik should not be allowed back in the city of Denver because of that joke? No.
And I mean that's the other side of Anthony Jeselnik, and I enjoy listening to his comedy, and I'll listen to it every once in a while. But he still has context behind all of his jokes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people are losing, and especially in the social media age. And we hit on this a little bit at the beginning, but not being in the moment, not being there for the comedy, not hearing the whole bit, allows people to get so offended so easily when they hear just a single line. And it's the same thing with the Dove commercial. And I understand that I personally find that still to be a bit, and we've talked about this before. I know Joel, that you don't necessarily feel it's racist.
It's
but yeah, it's we can talk about that forever, but it's still it's one of those things where context really matters, and people need to learn context again, and we've lost that with social media. And period.
Yeah, I mean, there's this. It was years ago. It was probably like 4 years ago that I saw this this comic, and it was a stick figure thing, simple comic. And someone says, "I have a headache. I'm going to look up my symptoms on the internet." Click, click. I have brain cancer, and that's the entire comic strip. And there were so many comments to the effect of, "My uncle or so-and-so has brain cancer. This is no laughing matter." No. They're making fun of WebMD and hypochondriacs. They're not making fun of brain cancer victims.
As a hypochondriac who went to the doctor 4 times during Wedding Singer, you remember those 2 weeks when I did not come to rehearsals?
Yes.
I was going to the emergency room every night because I was having panic attacks from looking at WebMD.
Oh, jeez.
I believe it.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like,
So
those
that
kinds
is a
of
joke
things
that you can laugh at.
Exactly, and you probably laughed at yourself.
Yes,
because
now that I'm not in that space, yeah.
Exactly.
All right, Scotty, and then we'll move on.
An interesting thing about this context stuff that I am self-admitting is that in order to see things in context, you have to put in the time. And by putting in the time, I mean you might have to watch a 40-minute comedy clip. When I'm on Facebook or social media, I don't even watch the video after the ad plays, for crying out loud.
Oh my God!
I mean,
it
like,
plays for 10 seconds. There's an ad. I'm like, fuck this.
Yeah, I'm
out.
like, not gonna
Peace.
watch it now. So suddenly, it's like, yeah, we have to relearn context. But I'm like, but if I'm on Facebook, I only want to give 4 seconds to each thing.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because then suddenly, it's like I won't watch something for more than 4 seconds, but I'll angry comment about it for more than 4 seconds. It's like nothing is as important as my words on Facebook or my responses. It's interesting.
So can we all make a pinky promise?
Okay.
Pinkies.
Wait, what is this pinky promise? We're gonna get them
the
chopped off.
The whole no. We're not gonna get it chopped off.
We talked about that already
We will
today.
all do better at learning. Pinky, everybody, pinkies.
I can't reach.
Mike,
Okay.
okay,
Other pinky.
Get your pinky in there. That we will all
With
do
our powers combined.
With our pinky powers
Heart.
combined, that we will all try better at learning context, because I think
Yes.
it affects
Yes,
everybody
for sure.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a
And yeah, being open and honest about our lives and opinions and whatnot is very important, but also respecting individuals, especially, and absolutely.
cool.
For sure.
But mostly context. Those are good points, but context first. Those are like distant second and fourths. I'm kidding. They're all the same.
This is a very serious episode, and
On a very
I'm
special
sorry.
something.
no,
random.
this is good.
I know we bring in
You're
a
supposed to be
comedian.
funny, for
we
God's
bring in a
sake.
comedian. And
Come on, tell us a joke, damn it.
Oh,
All
gosh.
comedy's rooted in pain. Jeez.
Yeah.
do you have any impressions?
Seriously,
All right,
yeah.
let's go around the table really quick and do one impression.
Okay, everybody
best-
stand
our
up.
best-
Let's go around the table.
No, let's. Oh God.
Oh, we're not going to ring around the table?
No,
God damn it.
no.
You
Let's
gotta be more
let's-
specific
let's
about
start.
this
Let's
stuff.
start with Michael. Michael, do your best impression.
Okay, I didn't do well last week, so let me try again. Yeah, I mean, you better call Kenny Loggins because you're in the danger zone.
That's good.
I like that.
Good. All right, Joel.
That's pretty good.
It's just deep.
What do you want me to do? I do
And your
Tom Hanks
best-
all the time.
Your
but-
best
No,
impression.
don't say your best.
Oh.
Say second best.
I got one you've never heard.
Your favorite.
This is Mary Steenburgen from Back to the Future 3 and Powder.
Okay.
You know
Uh-huh,
her?
yeah.
Emmett, when my bags were thrown, my telescope was damaged. And you have an interest in science. You'll be going to the town hall dance.
I like that, man. Good job.
It's a new one.
So I'm a really bad comedian. I don't do any impressions myself.
I think
that actually makes you a
Oh
good
yeah,
comedian.
probably a great comedian. But Kevin Pollak is a comedian who does a lot of impressions, and he has this thing on his show where he does one-word impressions, and the only one I've ever been able to do is Liam Neeson. This is my one-word impression of Liam Neeson saying bananas. Bananas.
Excellent.
All right.
Fantastic.
Mine is kind of my go-to one, but I need from the audience here a line that I can say as Kermit the Frog.
Look at that cool. Look at that weird looking sheet.
Look at that weird looking sheet over there.
Ooh. Yeah, I like that.
Shoot, I always go. Have I done my Scooby Doo and Shaggy?
You have, but do them. Okay, so we need to have lines for Scooby Doo and Shaggy. We need a situation.
Well, that's another one I can do. I can do. A couple.
I think we should create a
Okay,
situation.
so
Let's put
what-
Scooby and Shaggy in the
It's-
the car scene in Pulp Fiction.
Oh, you know what? We just pull up the lines. Car scene in Pulp Fiction lines. You know what the funniest thing about Europe is? What? It's the little differences. I mean, they got the same shit over there, but it's just a little different. Examples? All right, so you can walk into a movie theater in Amsterdam and buy a beer, and I don't mean just a no paper cup. I'm talking about a glass of beer. And in Paris, you can buy beer at McDonald's. And you know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese in Paris? They don't call it a quarter pounder with cheese. Nah, man, they got the metric system. They wouldn't know what the fuck a quarter pounder is. What do they call it? They call it a Royale with cheese. Royale with cheese.
There we go.
That's marvelous.
That's actually kinda
man.
fun.
We should do that more often.
Well,
just
I
like,
brought this up because Gilbert does this on his podcast.
oh, this is great. Like different
he'll bring up
scenes,
one.
different
This would
contexts for
be-
best impressions.
So, before we go, is there anything that you need to plug? Anything that you want to plug?
I will be at the Capital Hilarity Comedy Show at the Blush and Blue in beautiful downtown Denver on, when does this come out? The Wednesdays? Thursday, the 26th. And also, I'm starting my own podcast with fellow comedian and very funny friend of mine, Eric Lyons. It's called Nick and Eric Name the Podcast.
Oh, Eric.
Yeah, Eric. Yeah, oh, you suck. God, whatever. Bye.
And when does that start coming out?
It'll be out this week. So
nice, dude.
it'll probably be out on Thursday, so a day after you guys. But,
Good. See our
yeah,
page for a
totally.
link to that.
Yes, and you can go to nickjohnsoncomedy.com for all of the links that I mentioned.
Awesome.
Dot
Thanks, man.
comedy.
Yeah.
Is there any
I'm gonna
weird
go
spelling?
right
Is it
now.
NIC, no K, or something like that?
No, I'm a normal person.
Not like me.
Take that, not normal people. Michael with a K.
I love when people try to pronounce your names when they've never like heard you say Michael before.
I believe
Okay,
Michael
yeah.
that pick a cheer
What
for
was it?
Nikhil.
Johnson Comedy?
Yeah, Nick Johnson.
Nick, thank you so much for swinging by.
We had
Thanks
some
for
laughs
having
and
me.
some
We
other
had some-
feelings.
We had some
Yeah.
things. We had some stuff.
But you know what? It was a good listen. It was a good. People are gonna be like, "Oh wow, wow."
My favorite podcasts are the ones where you forget that you're listening and it feels like you're just having a conversation, and that's what I did. So I'm sorry for all the rambling.
No,
it's good.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the worst part of our show today, but it's,
Yeah, no, for sure. Shut up, Scotty.
Wow.
Okay
That's
then.
now that we're all kind of depressed again, my name is Charles Joseph Kelly.
Oh, we didn't close.
I'm Michael.
And I'm your co-host, Scotty Schaefer.
Joel. Adam Chavez. Half Mexican, half white.
All good.
Royale with cheese.
And this once again was our guest host Nick Johnson. Guys, Have yourselves a wonderful week.
Les Big Mac.